Hey guys, so we're going to start our introduction to orthographic sketching, or you might hear me say multi-view sketching, because it is seeing something in multiple different views. Multi-view sketching shows two or more two-dimensional views of a three-dimensional object. So it's kind of similar to, or it stems off of isometric sketching, where we're going to see three-dimensional things, but it's on a two-dimensional space. But we're going to see two or more of these views. So it's going to be multiple sketches that we have to do to make one multi-view drawing. It does provide the shape description of an object, which we're in GeoID, we're all about shapes. And when you combine this with dimensions, it serves as the main form of communication between designers and manufacturers. So a lot of times the designer is not the one that actually builds this, whatever it is that you might be designing. And in our case, we are designing something that the cross-country team is going to build. So we use multi-view sketching with dimensions as a way to communicate with those people. Here's an example of a multi-view sketch. So over here in the corner, you can see this chair. It's an isometric, but then we can see, like, we have 4 different sketches here that make up the multi-view, and it all is surrounding one another. So you have a front view sketch, a right side, a left side, and then the top. And if you notice, everything lines up. So the bottom of this chair lines up with the bottom of that chair with the bottom of that chair. Now it's all the same exact chair as all this same chair that's over here in the isometric, but everything stays lined up. So the seats are all lined up. It even lines up from top to bottom. So the side of the chair right here lines up with the side of the chair right there. So with multi-view sketching, you're looking at one object in different views. Here's another example of a multi-view drawing with a really simple blocky shape. One thing to note is that the isometric is always in the top right corner. It's always there. And then we will always have our front view on one side, and I'm actually going to change my color here so that way I can kind of play color coding. My top view always goes on top of the front view, and then my right side view will always go to the right of the front view. It doesn't change. The right goes on the right, the top goes on the top. It makes perfect sense. Somebody is going to get it wrong. So anyway, if I'm looking at my isometric view here, I have this like L shape that I can see. So my front view, I'm looking at it from here. We said in isometric, we can see the front, the top, and the right side. So there is my front view. If I go to my front view here, there's a lovely little L shape. So it matches. If I'm looking at my top, like looking down on the object, I can see a little surface here. There's a rectangle. There's another surface. And then there's this like CN, I don't know what color or what shape you want to call it. It's a shape that's in the shape of a C if it's faced one way and an N if it's faced the other way. So those are the faces that I can see if I'm looking straight down on top of it. And when I go to my top view, there's a tiny rectangle, a larger one, and there's that C shape. Now if I were to turn my whole thing, it would look like an N, but because everything has to stay lined up, so again, these line up, even this, like where the L goes, there's a shelf right there. So everything stays lined up. So that's why it's turned the way that it's turned. Looking at my right side view, I can see 2 squares. I can see a tiny little thing right in there, and then kind of a U shape. Again, that's one of them that if you turn it around, that might look like a backwards C. Maybe if you flip it upside down, it would be an N, but it's a U shape. So if I go to my right side view, I see a square, another square. There's the rectangle, and then there's the U shape I was talking about. So everything matches with the isometric. So that's why we learned isometric first, so that way we can then take this and put it into multi-view. Notice that we have these dimensions here, which we'll come to later. But the biggest thing is that everything matches. So we have the front, the top, and the right side. And notice how I color-coded everything. That's what we'll do as we kind of get into this. So one of the things that we talked about with isometric was that we can see 3 different dimensions, the height, the width, and the depth. Well, the same thing applies to multi-view. Since we are going to be drawing our multi-views off of our isometric, you'll be able to see those things. However, you can only see those things in certain views. So if I am looking at my front view, I can only see the width and the height. I cannot see how deep it goes because it's just that front face. It's like if you took a 3D object and you smashed it up against a wall, it's just that outline that you would basically see. If I'm looking at my top view, I can only see the width and the depth. I can't see how tall it is if I'm looking down on top of something. Think about if you're hovering over somebody and you look down at them, you can see how wide they are and you can see how deep they are from the front to the back, but you can't tell how tall they are. And then the last one, the right side view, I can see how tall it is and I can see how deep it is, but I have no idea how wide it is. So you're getting a profile view. If you're looking at somebody from the side, you could see how far they go from the front to the back. You can see how tall they are, but you can't tell how wide they are side to side. So that's what we're talking about here. You can see those things, but you can only see 2 of those dimensions in each view. Before you get started with drawing in multi-view or an orthographic view, you have to pick the best view for the front. The front view is the most important view. It shows the best shape. It shows the longest dimensions. It has the fewest hidden lines. It's the most natural position. So if I were to draw a car, if I said draw a car, some of you are not the best artists out there, and I wouldn't even consider myself the best artist, but I would not draw a car and the front view of the car, so it's like the front of the car. So I would not draw the car here, and I don't even know how to draw a car in the front, but I would not draw a car like this, like, hey, there's a little person there. I would not do that because I don't think that that's the best way to represent a car. If somebody were to look at that, they wouldn't be like, that's a car, definitely. So instead, I would draw the car looking like that. It's a side view of the car, but it shows the best shape. It's got your longest dimension. So from side to side there, it's that longest dimension. It's the most natural position. So that's the best front view of the car. Now, earlier in this, we were talking about a chair. So way back in that, and it was like the 3rd slide or something like that, we showed a chair. And the front view of the chair was the front of the chair. So again, if I were to start sketching out a chair, I would not sketch, like there's the back of the chair, there's the seat of the chair, and there's a leg, and there's a leg. Does that look like a chair? Absolutely not. Mrs. Rogie sucks as an artist on the iPad. But I wouldn't draw a chair like that. Instead, I would draw a chair like that. Something that actually represents the chair. It looks natural in that position. It does show the longest dimension, which is how tall it is, which, I mean, you can see it in the other way that I drew it. But this is the best shape. It shows the best contours or the best curves that the chair has. So that is multi-view or isometric. That is multi-view or orthographic sketching, basically in a nutshell, but we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that as a class together. Get pumped, guys. Here we go.